I like the double standing ovation. Thanks. Awesome. So I want to talk to you all today about one of the things that I actually, believe it or not, love most about being an entrepreneur. In fact, I think a lot of folks might even call it my superpower. My daughter, when I was sharing with her this presentation, she actually said, "You are the GOAT in this." And I'm like, okay, I like that. I'm the GOAT at this. And it's about swimming with whales. Now, obviously, I don't mean it literally, although this is super cool and on my bucket list. What I'm really talking about is the idea of swimming with the whales of industry. Those marquee clients that many companies would love to have on their logo wall. Companies like Home Depot, Carter's, Nordstrom, Grammarly, Dunkin', and the list goes on. You can see them here. This is actually my logo wall. These are the clients that my agency has been supporting for the last 12 plus years. And I'm not talking about small little projects. Anyone here ever gotten an email from Nordstrom Rack in the last 6 years? Anyone? Yeah. You're welcome, because every single one of those emails came through our shop. For Home Depot, if you've ever gotten an alert that a product that you had been looking at has dropped in price, we actually built that from the ground up, looked at all their SKUs, actually identified which ones had dropped in price. Believe it or not, they don't actually track that. We would identify those products, look at who browsed them, and then suppress anyone who had actually bought it recently. We produced that whole program soup to nuts. And even Grammarly, if you get a weekly statistic summary from them, every single one of those emails came from our shop for the last 12 years. So when we think about looking at those, getting all these logos, of course, it's not by luck. You don't do this year in, year out, over and over again by luck. But it didn't happen the way you thought it did either. Not one of these came through an RFP. I would love to think I had a really strong lead nurture program. We don't. I don't even have a sales team. You're kind of looking at her. So what I want to share with you today is how that happened. Since it didn't happen the way we all think it should happen, every one of those logos came to us. They asked us to help support them. I kind of call it the invitation. They invited us to be part of their teams. And I want to share with you 3 core strategies upon which that happens over and over again. So, strategy number 1, be the Mafia. And I'm not kidding. Really think of yourselves as the Mafia. It's just like you think when you see The Godfather, once you're in your family, or even better yet, every time you think you're out, they pull me back in. Yes, I will pull you back in. We look for ways to make every connection that we have be part of our Mafia. And this is different from networking, not to be confused with networking. The Godfather is not a master class in networking. The Godfather is a master class in leveraging and facilitating connections that he already had. So every time I think of somebody at random, I write them down, and I actually will reach out to them within the next week, if not that day. I've invited former employees, former clients that have let us go and said we need to move on. They get invited to every single one of our holiday parties, and they show up. And I do make a mental note of every time somebody has been extra supportive or done an extra mile, and I look to return the favor, just like any good Mafia boss would do. I want to share with you an experience share of how that actually came to be. I'm going to take you back to 2010. No, I'm sorry, even further back. I'm taking you to 2000. Anyone remember Singular Wireless? Yeah, that's before AT&T Wireless. I was at another ad agency, and I was part of an RFP pitch. We had no business pitching Singular Wireless. We had no telecom, nothing even in the communications industry. I myself had been in nonprofit fundraising for the last 8 years, worked for Save the Children and CARE and Habitat. The only thing I had in common with Singular Wireless was that I had orange hair. And I'm not kidding. Literally, I think they put me on the pitch because I had orange hair and it was a good conversation starter. We did not get the account, but everybody who we had worked with through that presentation became part of my Mafia. So when I was shopping for a phone, and that's what they used to look like, I would give them a call and say, hey, I'm looking for a phone. I genuinely would like the inside scoop on what phone should I be buying. And I also ran into one person, like 6 or 7 months later, ran into somebody at a De La Soul concert. I really am dating myself here, aren't I? Ran into her at a De La Soul concert, and I sent her a note shortly thereafter. And she said, oh my gosh, I was just thinking of you. We have this project that our agency, you know, the one that we hired instead of you all, yes, I remember them, that the agency thinks is too small for them to handle. I was like, sure, would love to help you out with that project. The project was text messaging and how to launch text messaging. So I can't tell you how many meetings and focus groups I sat in on to come up with why one would text message on phones like that. So we came up with really brilliant ideas, like in case you're in the library and you need to be really quiet, or at a movie theater, or at a concert. Essentially, anytime it was either too quiet or too loud to talk on your phone. Yeah, I'm telling you, countless focus groups on this concept. That one project turned into a 15+ year account for that agency. And of course, they're AT&T Wireless today. You never know where those happen chance projects and leads are going to come from. The second strategy I want to share is to listen for the invitation. Bless you. Very rarely are those invitations to participate as obvious as you think they are. Yes, there's going to be that final invitation of, hey, we have a project, would you like to help us with? But all along the way, there are what I'll call micro invitations that are happening. Ones that I've probably missed in the last couple weeks, to be honest with you. I've been so underwater, but we have to listen for those micro invitations. Home Depot is a great example of one of those micro invitations that we heard. I was actually at another agency long ago and had worked on the Home Depot account. And they fired us. Not because of bad work, but because they had a new VP and a whole new leadership team that came in after the Nardelli years. And they had a whole new VP, whole new team. They wanted to bring in their own agency. They fired us. But I'm a good Mafia boss, right? I didn't take it personally because it was just business. This is just business. Didn't take it personally, and I still kept in touch with all of those folks that worked at Home Depot. I'd have lunch with them, like some lunches at Taqueria del Sol over on the west side. And probably about 3 years later, I'm having one of those standard lunches with a friend of mine, and she's expressing some frustration about a project that she simply couldn't get across the finish line. I, of course, heard her frustration. I was a good ear for her venting. But what I also heard was an invitation. Within all that frustration, I simply said, you know, if you need any help, I'd be more than happy to lend a hand. And she said, I never thought you'd be open to that. She really genuinely thought that since we had broken ties 3 years earlier, that I would never be open to that invitation. That account, Home Depot, as I mentioned, we do the price drop alerts, 10+ year account, multi-million dollars. But It wouldn't have happened had I not heard that invitation. And then the third strategy is, strangely, the easiest one to say, but the hardest one to execute. It's getting out of our own head. We are often the ones who are in our own way, especially when it comes to swimming with whales. We really think it needs to be a lot bigger. Like C-level executives only want to talk to the Deloittes or the Accentures of the world. Every single one of those whales works with a lot of smaller companies as well. They're not just working with Accenture and Deloitte. In fact, many of them would prefer not to be honest. We also tend to diminish our own value and our own worth in those conversations. So I can't express how important it is to get out of your own head. When I first started in advertising right out of college, as a matter of fact, I was a cold caller, like the guy at the Wolf of Wall Street. Did a lot of cold calling. I must admit, I hated it. I actually don't think I was really good at it either. But what it did teach me is that everyone will take a call if you will listen to them. It is not as hard or as scary or as daunting as we think it might be. And I'm not suggesting to cold call, but making those connections are always easier than we think. It's not as complicated as we need it to be. Oops, where did my last, I'm missing a slide.
You can go through mine.
Oh, it's okay. I'm missing a slide. I don't know how that happened. All right, well, I'm missing a slide, but the slide really shows that what we want to do is be part of the Swimming with Whales. So I want to invite all of you. It's not a micro invitation, it's a real invitation. A real invitation to jump in and begin swimming with those whales. I hope to have you as part of my Mafia, and I look forward to hearing about those landing with whales in the future. Thank you.